Friday. It's Brunch with Bernie. Senator Bernie Sanders, ably representing the state of Vermont, and I think, frankly, the entire country. Online from us from the Senate recording studio. Senator Sanders, good morning, or good afternoon.
Thank you. Great to be with you, Tom.
Thank you, Senator. Your thoughts on what just happened in the House and what appears to be just about to happen in the Senate?
Well, it's kind of a hectic week because either today or tomorrow, the House and the Senate are going to adjourn and not reconvene until the new session, the beginning of the new year. This has been an interesting week. Earlier in the week, Tom, as you know, the release of the Senate Intelligence Committee's report on torture came out. And I think for many, many Americans, including myself, it was very, very disturbing. While it was not certainly surprising to me, as somebody who had grave misgivings about this war in the first place and the Bush-Cheney administration and what they were doing, it was really disturbing to learn some of the details about the nature of torture that took place. And I think for me, the bottom line is that in a world which is becoming increasingly brutal, I mean, you know, people would be stunned to know what goes on in countries like Syria every single day and how people are being treated in the midst of a war. If the United States of America cannot maintain a moral standard, if we descend into the same type of ugliness that exists around the world, then it becomes impossible for us to be critical and demand changes of other countries, because they will look at us and say, hey, that's what you guys are doing. Don't tell me we shouldn't torture American prisoners. You do the same thing. Second of all, obviously, it is totally unacceptable that we have a government agency misleading elected officials. Democracy is a nation in which the people, through their elected officials, make the decisions, not agencies of government who do what they want. So that was very, very disturbing, and I hope the end result of that is that the policy of the United States simply and straightforwardly is we do not do torture. In terms of the issue that you raised right now, today, tomorrow, we will be voting on a omnibus appropriations bill, which will be a little bit over $1 trillion. I'm going to vote against that bill for a number of reasons. The truth is that Senator Barbara Mikulski, who is the current chair of the Appropriations Committee, is in a very difficult position because she's negotiating with the Republicans. If you don't reach a decision now, then you're going to have to come back when the Republicans have control over both the Senate and the House, and a bad situation will be even worse. But having said that, I am not convinced that this is by any means the best agreement that could be reached. And there are a number of provisions in this $1 trillion bill that I strongly object to. One area that has not gotten a lot of attention, I'm not quite sure why, is the fact that 60%, or roughly 60% of this $1 trillion bill is for the military. And we have got to ask ourselves a very simple question, and that is, at a time when the middle class of this country is disappearing, at a time when our infrastructure is crumbling, at a time when millions of working class families are unable to send their kids to college, at a time when other students are leaving school deeply in debt, at a time when our child care system is virtually non-existent and not affordable for working families, at a time of enormous unmet needs, should we be spending some 60% of our discretionary spending on defense? Should we be spending almost as much as the entire rest of the world combined? And the answer is, I think not. Do we want a strong defense? Yes, we do. But do we have to spend all that much money, especially understanding? And I hope to get into this issue in greater detail next year. It is no secret that the Department of Defense is unable to even audit their budget. It is so big, so complicated, that they don't have the computer technology to even tell the American people how money is being spent. And second of all, everybody also knows that there's been a whole lot of fraud committed by large defense contractors, et cetera, et cetera. So I am not sympathetic to spending close to $600 billion on the military. Strong military, yes, but $600 billion, no. Second of all, an issue that has gotten a good deal of attention is that Citigroup put a provision that was put into the House bill and now on the bill that will come to the Senate today or tomorrow, which essentially repeals a provision of Dodd-Frank protecting taxpayers from bailing out large financial institutions who engage in risky derivative speculation. And it is, we bailed out Wall Street because of their recklessness and illegal behavior. And now what Wall Street is saying, hey, we're back to doing it again, and we want taxpayers to bail us out. If we make a whole lot of money on risky derivatives, we get rich. If we lose a lot of money, taxpayers will bail us out. That may make sense to Citigroup and the other Wall Street financial institutions. It does not make sense to me. It is in the bill. It speaks to the incredible power of Citigroup and Wall Street, and I can't vote for a bill that has that provision. Another provision in there that people have not heard much about is that as a result of language in the bill, there will be some workers who have worked for 20, 30, 40 years, their entire life at a company, who will now end up receiving as much as 50% less than they anticipated in their pensions. What a pension is kind of a sacred contract between a worker. And you say, okay, maybe you didn't get a wage increase this year, but you're here because you know when you retire, you're at least going to get your pension. But now you're seeing all over this country a war against guaranteed pensions, pensions that workers were promised, and we're pulling the rug out underneath them. And that's wrong, and that's in this bill as well. So to my mind, negotiating around here is very difficult. You have right-wing Republicans in control of the House, working for Wall Street, working for the big money interests. But I think we could have done better, and I will vote against this piece of legislation.
I got an email from your office about another piece of legislation that, oh no, it wasn't, it was someplace else, another piece of legislation that just passed that is going to the president. I'm forgetting the details on it.
Well, there are some, in the midst of $1 trillion bill, let me be very clear. These votes are never 100% clear cut. There's no bill where there are not good things in it. I'll give you examples of where there are good things. I'm chairman of the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs, and veterans issues are very important to me. The truth is, the budget for the Veterans Administration is a good budget. It is a good budget, and I'm happy about that. And what we managed to get in this bill is what we call advanced appropriations for mandatory funding, which means that if there is ever another shutdown of the government as a result of this legislation, veterans will still continue to get their disability benefits. That's no small thing. That is something that all of the veterans organizations, the American Legion, the DAV, the VFW, the Vietnam Vets, etc., have wanted. So it's a good provision. And there are other things. Years ago, when I was in the House, I worked with Barbara Lee on a National Housing Trust Fund bill to focus on low-income housing, which is very, very problematic in many parts of the country. For the first time, we passed that bill a long, long time ago. For the first time, it was funded. I believe there's something like $500 million in it, which will allow us the opportunity to go forward with low-income housing. So in this bill, there are good things, and I don't want to suggest that there are not. But I think the negative outweighs the positive.
Senator Sanders with us for our hour-long national town hall meeting, Brunch with Bernie. Senator Sanders will be taking your calls right after this. Be sure to check out his website, sanders.senate.gov. You can check out his Facebook page. Just plug in Senator Sanders or Bernie Sanders, and you can tweet to him at Senator Sanders. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And our new book, The American Revolution of 1800, about the election of Jefferson, is out now, just an FYI. And welcome back. Pick up phone calls here, Senator?
Let's do it.
Okay. Kiss Kid. I don't know your real name. It's a kind of a handle, I guess. Watching us on Free Speech TV in Yucca Valley, California. You're on the air with Senator Sanders, sir.
Senator Sanders, Tom, my name is Archie. I've talked to you many times.
Great.
You hit on every everything, Senator Sanders. There is no place in a spending bill for this Dodd-Frank Citibank stuff, and you mentioned the pensions. No place for it, short of you filibustering or because you can stop it, can't you, with a filibuster? But that's two things. Just tell them to strip it out.
Well, I wish, Archie, I wish it worked like that. It didn't. A filibuster could delay it, but unless I am very mistaken, there are a significant, in the Senate, I'm guessing, who knows, 65, 70 votes more to pass it. Right. So I think this thing is likely to pass.
Aaron in Grandview, Missouri, watching over on Sanders.gov. Hey, Aaron, you're on the air, Senator Sanders.
Hi, I wanted to ask about how you think that you can bring socialist change to America, even though there's a big fear and kind of stigma surrounding not only the concepts, but the very word itself, and how that could be overcome to actually help the people.
Well, thank you, Aaron, for the question. I am a democratic socialist. That's no secret. And you're right in saying that many people don't understand what that word is. And I think probably the best thing to do is to look at those countries, often in Scandinavia, sometimes in Europe, that have adopted programs that work for the middle class and working families of those countries rather than just the very, very wealthy. So if you take a look at a country like Denmark, which over the years has had social democratic governments and sometimes not, what they have ended up establishing are some enormous programs which have worked extremely well. In the United States, for example, we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth. It's somewhere around 20%. 1 out of 5 of our kids grows up in poverty. In countries like Denmark, the poverty rate of kids is less than 5%. In the United States, health care, despite the modest gains of the Affordable Care Act, is very, very difficult for people to find a doctor to get quality care at an affordable price. And we have 40 million people who have no health insurance. In countries like Denmark, people just go to the doctor whenever you want to go to the doctor. There is no out-of-pocket expense. That's what governments can do when they work for working families. In this country, as everybody knows, the cost of college is increasingly unaffordable, and many working class kids are leaving school $40,000, $50,000 in debt. In Denmark, it doesn't cost anything to go to college. That country has decided that making sure that all of their young people, regardless of their income, should get a college education. It's not just Denmark. Germany does the same. Many other countries do the same. So I think we have to talk about what, in fact, already exists in countries around the world that have had social democratic governments.
We'll be back with your calls for Senator Sanders right after this. It's 20 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to Talk Media for the sane among us. It's the Thom Hartmann Program. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour here on Friday. Senator Sanders with us live from Capitol Hill, from the Capitol building. And Jim in Lockport, Illinois. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good afternoon, Senator Sanders. How are you?
Good.
My question to you is basically this. With this pending bill that's coming through, do you think we missed the mark by not sending some of these big bank CEOs to prison on their business practices? I mean, I think that would have sent a bigger message, and maybe we wouldn't be attacking Dodd-Frank right now.
I agree with you, Jim. You know, wherever I speak, in Vermont or around the country, and I talk about the Wall Street crash, which had such a horrible impact on millions of people losing their jobs or their homes or their life savings. And when we understand that this was caused by the greed illegal behavior, the recklessness of Wall Street. And people always ask a simple question. If these guys committed such a horrific crime, which impacted so many millions of people, how come none of them are in jail? And the answer, I suspect, is that our criminal justice system is not meant to punish the most powerful people in the country. That's not what it does. That's not where we are. They are too powerful to be punished. There was a line that somebody coined a while ago that not only are these guys too big to fail, the banks are too big to fail, but the CEOs are too big to jail. But I think from the very beginning, and I was very insistent on it, met with the president on this issue, the American people were outraged by the behavior of Wall Street. They wanted to know why this crisis took place, and they wanted the perpetuators, the people who caused this crisis, to be punished. You know, it's amazing. We have more people in jail in America than any other country on earth, and yet the people who committed the most significant crimes that impacted the most people, they didn't see jail time. So I agree with you, Jim.
Jeff in Mount Hope, Wisconsin. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, Mr. Sanders. I guess I'm kind of at a loss. I don't feel I have any representation anymore after the vote that went through the House last night. Is our last hope to have Mr. Obama veto this? Because I know he won't, but I mean, is that our last great hope?
Well, unless I'm very mistaken, the president will not veto this. I think he has indicated that he will sign it. He is unhappy about a number of the provisions in it. But from his perspective, I'm talking about, what he says is he thinks the alternative is worse. If we do not have an agreement, the government shuts down, or if you have a shorter term agreement, then the Republicans will negotiate something in 3 months. But Jeff, I think, you're raising a very fundamental issue, and that is, given the fact that the Democrats in the Congress are going to be in the minority in both the House and the Senate, what do we do? What is our posture? And what I feel very strongly about, and I've indicated this to the White House, is that the president has got to get up there, above and beyond this legislation, and I'm going to vote against it. And I think he should have vetoed it. But above and beyond this, the president has got to get up there and say, yes, I understand that the Republicans control the House and the Senate, and they won the recent election. I got it. But let me be very clear. If the Republicans bring forth legislation that's going to cut Social Security, I'm going to veto it. If they're going to end Medicare as we know it, I'm vetoing it. If they're going to make cuts in Medicaid, in education, in nutrition, programs that working families desperately need, I'm going to veto it. So save your time. Don't waste time going through this whole business, the legislative process. It ain't going to happen. And those vetoes will be sustained. And then what the president has got to say, okay, there are areas where we can work together. You have some Republicans, for example, who do understand that our infrastructure is crumbling. Now, they don't want to invest as much as I do in rebuilding it, but they're prepared to spend some money. Work with them. Mitt Romney has indicated he supports raising the minimum wage. Well, I would go a lot higher than Mitt Romney, but maybe we can get some progress. Let's find out where we can work together. But what the president has really got to do is get out his veto pen and say, don't waste your time, guys. It ain't going to happen. I'm not going to cut programs that working families need. I'm not going to give tax breaks to billionaires and large corporations. So, save your energy. That's what I think we should be doing.
Robert in Naples, Florida. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you for speaking with me, Senator. Senator, mine might be sort of a cynical question, but why does it appear that your positions seem to be on the fringe rather than what I see as America should be clearly in the mainstream? And that being said, do you see in reality, do you see a change given Citizens United and the money structure in this country? Do you see a real change towards your positions, or what I see as simply a corrupt and bribed government?
1 minute, Senator.
Okay, Robert, thanks for your question. The truth is, sometimes the media describes me as some kind of far leftist. if I were a far leftist, I would tell you I am a far leftist. I am not. Everything that I talk about, I think, is what a considerable majority of the American people want to see their government do in terms of expanding the middle class, creating jobs, raising wages, dealing with climate change, dealing with women's rights, etc. So I think you're right. Kind of what I talk about is mainstream. What has happened over the years, because of the power of money and the power of Citizens United, the Republican Party has moved from a center-right party to a right-wing extremist party. The Democratic Party has moved from a center-left to kind of a moderate party, and you have millions of working-class families who are not getting the representation that they need. So the one-word answer to your question, Robert, has to do with the huge amounts of money coming into the political process and Citizens United.
It's our Brunch with Bernie hour, our national town hall meeting here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Senator Sanders taking your calls. Be sure to check out his website at sanders.senate.gov. You can sign up for the Bernie Buzz, his newsletter, which is useful, interesting, informative, occasionally entertaining. All kinds of great news over there at sanders.senate.gov. Check it out.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-536-2370.
You can also find Bernie over on Facebook, and you can tweet him at Senator Sanders. Senator Sanders is back with us. Senator, you back? He's just putting his headphone in?
Yes.
Okay, Senator Sanders, you're back with us.
I am. I may have to run out. Senator Thom Hartmann of Iowa, who has been one of the great senators in recent American history, is on the floor now. He's given his final speech, and people are saying things about him. And Thom has been a real hero in terms of the American Disability Act, labor legislation, child labor around the world. And I wanted to say a few words, but apparently they're backed up there a little bit.
Okay.
So let's take some questions, and we'll do that.
Yeah, he's a good man. Pam in Antioch, Tennessee. You are on the air, Senator Sanders.
Hi. You're like my hero. I have a question about corporate taxes, and maybe you can just listen to this idea, see how it sounds. I'm a little tired of hearing the Republicans talk about the job creators and how we can't punish them, and I keep thinking, well, maybe they should put their money where their mouth is, and the corporate tax rate should be directly proportional to the unemployment rate. Like start with a floor value of 25% and then say plus 2 times the unemployment rate, and basically say new loopholes. The only loophole you get is to hire American workers. If you want a lower corporate tax rate, you have to hire more people. If the unemployment rate goes up, so do your taxes. We got to put the Americans to work. How does that sound?
Well, I like the general approach. I don't know that I agree with the exact specifics, but let's just talk about corporate taxes. What the corporate line is and the National Chamber of Commerce line is that we overtax corporations, that they're paying the highest tax rates in the entire world. What these guys are talking about is the nominal rate, the rate that is on paper. In reality, the corporate tax rate in America is equivalent. It's about 12% in terms of the effective tax rate of what corporations really pay, as opposed to the nominal rate of 35%. What we also know is that major profitable corporations like General Electric, Boeing, Verizon, over a period of recent years, because of all of the loopholes, have paid actually nothing in federal taxes. And the last study that I've seen tells me that 1 out of 4 large corporations pay nothing in taxes. So you've got a tax system which is riddled with loopholes, which enables corporations to stash their profits in tax havens like Bermuda or the Cayman Islands, avoiding $100 billion a year in taxes. Now, Pam asks an interesting question, and how do you tie taxation to job creation? Well, interestingly enough, some of the guys who have gotten the largest tax breaks, the corporations in recent years, they're the ones who have laid off more American workers than anyone else. Yeah, they may be growing jobs in China or Vietnam, but not in the United States of America. So I think you can use a tax policy as a carrot to say to a company, yeah, we're prepared to give you support with taxes, but you have got to start in a significant way growing jobs in the United States of America. And we worked on that concept with a number of federal programs tied to the Export-Import Bank, etc., where we said is, yes, we will give support to those companies that are creating jobs in America, but if you are outsourcing your jobs, I can't imagine why in a million years we would want to give you any kind of tax breaks.
Paul in Woodinville, Washington. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yeah, thank you, and it's a pleasure to speak with you, Senator Sanders. My complaint is about prescription drug prices, and let me describe it briefly as an example. I have an inhaler that I carry in my pocket. Many people do for asthma. It's albuterol. This used to be a generic inhaler. The Medicare Part D prescription drug bill allowed the pharmaceutical companies to rebrand many, many drugs that have been generic for decades. This inhaler that I have in 1982, I used to pay $6 or $8 for this thing. In 2005, even before Med D, I could get it online for $13. As of this year, 2014, this drug before insurance was $54. In 2015, it's $135 before insurance. The problem with the insurance plans is they keep going up and up every year and cover less and less. I'll have to pay 50%, $67 for this inhaler. What this does is to put us in, because of these rising prices, puts those of us who are on Med D in the donut hole earlier in the year, having to pay higher prices. So these drug plans are getting more expensive, they cover less, and they put us in the donut hole earlier, so we're paying more and more for drugs that are not covered. What in the world can be done to stop this highway robbery of the American people? It's not just Democrats, it's Republicans too.
Paul, thanks very much. And you did an excellent job in describing the problem. Ironically, a couple of months ago, we had a hearing just on this issue. And the issue that we focused on is that in the last year or two, we have seen a number of generic drugs, as Paul described, which used to be very reasonably priced, skyrocketing in price. And I mean not a 20% increase, in some cases 1,000% increase, or a 500% increase. And we tried to bring the companies together to tell us why they were doing it, but they didn't show up. And the answer is they are doing it because they can get away with it. So I think the long-term answer to your question, Paul, is that because the United States does not have a national health care program which is able to negotiate drug prices with the pharmaceutical industry, as is the case in many other countries, where the same drugs we use are sold at a far less expensive price, that is what we've got to do. We've got to say to the drug companies, guess what? You can't raise your prices tomorrow to any level that you want. A lot of people don't have the money to pay for them. There are people who are going to be getting sick. They're going to die. 1 out of 4 people in this country does not fill the prescription that their doctors write for them. What kind of sense is that? So you've raised a very important issue, and it's one that we have got to address. And I think the answer is government has got to negotiate prices. These guys can't raise their prices willy-nilly.
Matt in East Jordan, Michigan. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Senator. Several times this president has spoken about wanting to work with this new Republican Congress, and hopefully he's not referring to getting the TPP signed. But my more immediate concern is the chance that this president might try to bring back the horrible grand bargain, that is the assault on Social Security. Do you think the president will possibly bring back the grand bargain to try to work with more reasonable Republicans like Senator McConnell? Thank you, Senator.
Well, Matt, I have been helping to lead the effort here in the Senate to oppose, not only to oppose cuts in Social Security. Right now, poverty among seniors is going up. You got millions of seniors who are struggling to put food on their table, to heat their homes, to buy the medicines that they need. And it would be beyond unconscionable to be talking about cutting Social Security benefits. My strong view is we should expand benefits, and we could do that by lifting the cap, which is currently at $117,000 on taxable income. I can't speculate as to what the president will do, but I have personally made it very clear to him on more than one occasion that any effort to cut Social Security, any kind of agreement with the Republicans, is something that I would vigorously oppose.
Okay. And just 2 seconds. Okay, thank you, Senator. We'll be back with more calls for Senator Bernie Sanders. On the line with us, it's our Brunch with Bernie hour, our national town hall meeting, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archive.
15 minutes before the hour, it looks like this time Senator Sanders did have to leave.